Go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Karen Hyde. I'll be your presiding member this morning. I'll declare the meeting open at 9:30. I'll introduce the rest of the panel shortly. I'd first like to acknowledge that we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and that we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia and pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panel Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of those regulations. Members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. So on the panel today, besides myself, Karen Hyde, I have to my left Ms. Lee O'Donoghue as Deputy Presiding Member. Further to my left, Mr. John Syme as Specialist Member. And further again to my left is Panel Member Councillor Michael Separovich, Local Government Member from the City of Cockburn. And on screen we have Councillor Taran Dewan, Local Government DAP Member from the City of Cockburn, who's joining us on Zoom. Item 2 on our agenda, we have apologies from Councillor Tom Widdenbar, who's the other Local Government Member from the City of Cockburn. Item 3, members on leave of absence, we have none. Item 4, noting of minutes. Minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website for people to note. We move to part B of our agenda for the City of Cockburn, and I would first like to seek a declaration of due consideration to confirm that all panel members have considered the documentation contained in part B of the agenda and part B related information. So if I could please have a show of hands to confirm that you've duly considered all materials. Thank you. Everyone has considered everything. Item 2, disclosures of interest. I've not received any disclosures of interest at this point. Did any members have any to declare? Just ask the panel members from local government, was the matter considered, this reconsideration was considered at council meeting? No, thank you. So no need to make any declarations on that matter. Thank you. So we move ahead with our agenda. We've nothing at item 3, form 1, nothing at item 4, form 2, but we do have at item 5 a section 31 SAT reconsideration for lot 9501 Gabler Road, Hammond Park, for mixed-use commercial development. Now, we have a number of presentations this morning, and in accordance with the Standing Orders Clause 4.82, presenters are limited to 3 minutes each. There's not been any extension of time granted to presenters, and we will notify you when you get close to your time allocation. You're encouraged to focus on the main aspects and to verbally present within that time frame, please. After the presentations, panel members will be invited to ask you questions, and then after that we'll go to our local government officers for questions later on. So the first presenter in person we have in support of the RAR recommendation is Mr. Mark Holst. So you've got some slides, Mr. Holst, I believe.
Yep. So firstly, good morning, and thank you all for providing me with this opportunity to speak. I appreciate I only have 3 minutes, so I'll power through this. First, by way of introduction, my name is Mark Holst. I'm a parent and a local member of the community. Over the past few years, I've volunteered in various roles. Until recently, I was school board chair and helped the school through many challenges, including rapid growth, high leadership turnover, and reconnecting with the community post-COVID-19. In this role, I spent a lot of time talking with teachers in the community. Over the past few years, I have invested a significant amount of personal time on road safety campaigns for the school. I had been working with various state government agencies in the City of Cockburn to establish safe routes and traffic warden infrastructure, with the goal of seeing more children living safer and healthier lifestyles by walking, riding and scooting to school. To have previously seen the application approved suggests compatibility of land use may not have been adequately considered in the decision. I'm grateful we have an opportunity today to take another look. I believe we are all aware the development site sits immediately adjacent to Hammond Pike Primary School. The community raised many concerns, however, I will focus on three key areas. So firstly is around petrol station emissions. I want to quickly address concerns around VRT modelling. We must consider the stakes involved here as the cost of getting it wrong is very high. We have approximately 900 children attending the school and many of them have chronic health conditions that can be exacerbated through emission exposure. What we understand is the petrol station would not have been approved within 200 metres of a school without the use of VR2. Consider a petrol station within a 200 metre zone with a school at its boundary. This is what we understand to be a safe distance. Consider the same petrol station using VR2 within a 50 metre zone with a school at its boundary. VR2 promises to reduce emissions by up to 95%. Is this considered safe? That's the question. So our school is 50 metres from the pumps. Through some basic modelling we see, reducing from 200 metres to 50 metres, a reduction in the hemispherical volume of air reduced by 98.4%. Considering the two scenarios, this leads to an increase of emissions within that space that are more than 3 times higher. I believe the community could find comfort with appropriate modelling and a monitoring scheme with suitable endorsement. Personal safety of children. During my time working with the school on road safety campaigns, I've had the opportunity to work with many different principals, teachers and caregivers. To achieve successful outcomes, we had to understand our community and demographic. What we know is many children travel to and from school unaccompanied. This is due to a combination of cultural norms from overseas families and a high percentage of families where both parents work. In the suburb, we see significant numbers of children loitering before school until the gates open. And similarly, we see large numbers of children playing in the streets after school until their parents return home. It takes little imagination to see the new development will serve as a magnet to children. There are two key safety issues to consider here. Firstly, the risk is increased of a child being struck by a vehicle whilst crossing Gabler Road and the increased risk of abduction. Gabler Road is widely recognised as a dangerous road. We have seen many near misses and accidents over the years, some involving hospitalisation. There is no safe crossing at the development site. This development will only make the situation worse and set back outcomes we've worked very hard to achieve. Also, over the years, we've had a few white van scares, in quotes, and I have heard enough stories from principals to make my skin crawl. With fast food establishments. So right now, we're witnessing a crisis in education. We're seeing large numbers of children with significant behavioural issues in classrooms. We're seeing teachers burning out and leaving the profession, and we're seeing a significant drop in people choosing teaching as a career. I have heard too many stories to count. One recent story I heard from a teacher that moved me, where he became so stressed after dealing with poorly behaved children, he suffered a stress-related heart attack and had to step away from the job he loved. What we do know is fast food is addictive and triggers behavioural issues in children. Immediate proximity of so many fast food establishments to see children eating an increased diet of junk food, and the smell of the chip fry in the classrooms will certainly act as a trigger. Just jump back to this one. So in conclusion, note these concerns are not new and are shared by many groups within our community, including 60% of the local community, Cancer Council WA, Telethon Kids Institute, the Ed Department and the Health Department, and I forgot to put on there, City of Cockburn. Many within the community are disappointed the developer did not seek alternate locations for the development, but could have found greater support. Over the past few months, I've heard the sentiment often repeated, we do support the development, just not there. In my line of work, I'm often asked to provide an analysis of pros and cons when making proposals. In this case, I can only conclude the school is exposed to significant risks and issues from the development. Looking at it the other way, the development will benefit greatly from being located next to the school.
You're at 5 minutes.
I ask that the panel considers the arguments today and finds that the decision that can be made with a clear conscience is to wholly reject the development application, and I ask the developer to consider a more appropriate site for the proposal that achieves a win-win outcome for all involved. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Note I was a little generous with
Sorry.
timing there. Thank you for that. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Holst? Councillor Dewan, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Next, we have a combination of presenters, Jennifer Ragg, Joanne Lisiandro and Damien Ragg presenting together, I believe. You've organised yourselves and you've been granted 9 minutes.
Everyone for your time this morning. The road infrastructure surrounding Hammond Park Primary School cannot get children to and from their school safely. Here are 2 known incidents of near misses on Gabler and Hammond Road that make sense. With known vehicle pedestrian crashes in the area, they have not been included in the transport impact assessment. This is incredibly concerning as the proposed development will generate over 1,000 additional trips to the area during peak times. At the same time, these incidents with Hammond Park Primary School students occurred. The significant increase in traffic to the area will only worsen the already extreme risk to the 900 current and future students at Hammond Park Primary School. Over 900 students and hundreds of parents enter and exit Hammond Park Primary School during peak times, primarily utilising Gabler Road. Gabler Road is the main feeder road for the Murrumbidgee Drive car park and the school's only kiss and drop. As we can see in these photos of Murrumbidgee Drive and Gabler Road, there is substantial congestion and delays. This proposed development is not a site in isolation. The additional 1,000+ vehicle trips this proposed development will generate during the same peak periods will further overwhelm the existing road infrastructure. The increase in traffic volume will lead to longer delays, heightened driver frustration, and a greater risk of vehicle pedestrian incidents, like the video of the near miss that was captured on Hammond Road and just a few metres from the proposed development. The proposed development undermines Hammond Park Primary School's efforts to promote active and healthy lifestyles, with popular initiatives like their regular wheel and heel days becoming dangerous to public safety. The traffic management plans for the proposed development rely heavily on the assumption that the Hammond Road duplication may occur. Ben Moore shared at a community meeting last year that following the designation of Ankertel Road as the preferred route to the Outer Harbour, and the Rowley Road and the linked Hammond Road upgrade would be up to a decade away. The current road infrastructure is insufficient to bear the increased traffic burden while we wait for an unknown extended period of time while we wait for the upgrades. This reliance on speculative future upgrades is highly problematic and exposes the community, particularly the thousands of current and future students at Hammond Park Primary School, to dangerous conditions. This is inconsistent with responsible urban planning. Permanent road closures this month at Irvine Parade and soon to be Barfield Road has increased traffic to the roads surrounding the proposed site. This is not considered or reflected in the transport impact assessment. One of the final pieces of the puzzle for Hammond Park, the strategically placed 2.33 hectare land holding at 464 Love Road in Hammond Park, has been listed. As we can see from the Southern Suburbs District Structure Plan dated January 2017, 466 Waddlup Road has long been considered as a central precinct for Hammond Park and is zoned as a local centre with mixed business commercial. But we can also see from the structure plan that lot 9501 is zoned as medium density residential, an appropriate use of land with its extremely close location to a sensitive land use and wetland. In November last year, bushfires tore through our suburb. The addition of this high-risk facility within a bushfire-prone area poses significant safety concerns. It exacerbates the likelihood of complications, with Hammond Park Primary School's muster point being 30 metres from the proposed service station. DFES has highlighted critical inadequacies within the proposed bushfire management plan. These unresolved issues emphasise the unsuitability of this proposed development in this location.
Thank you. To follow through and then we'll invite questions when the three of you concluded.
Good morning. We've heard about the significant risks for child pedestrian safety. I wish to also remind you that key researchers from the Telethon Kids Institute and the Cancer Council have made submissions as part of the consult period in the lead up to the first meeting. In his submission, Associate Professor Alex Larcombe, Head of Environmental Respiratory Health at the Telethon Kids Institute, cited a significant body of scientific research which identifies the increased likelihood of malignant cancers in children from environmental exposures to carcinogens due to living and working near petrol stations. The location significantly breaches guidance from the Environmental Protection Agency, which says that for 24-hour petrol stations, there should be at least a 200-metre buffer to sensitive land uses like primary schools. The residents of Hammond Park have genuine concerns for the health and safety of proposed development, and this is backed by state and local research, evidence and guidelines. And I wish to just draw your attention to the fact that the Chief Health Officer has released draft objectives and priorities for the new State Public Health Plan 2025 for the next 5 years. And this includes a requirement to facilitate the provision of information about public health risks from proposals such as this. In this public state health plan, there is a priority to ensure health contributes to planning and development approval processes such as this. And this is to align with the Public Health Act. I also wish to draw your attention to the fact that there is a tendency for fast food chains to purposely cluster around schools. And this is captured in the peer-reviewed literature. In one particular article by Gina Trapp, who is a researcher at the Telethon Kids Institute, she's cited as saying the food industry is increasingly using non-broadcast channels, such as outdoor advertising for product marketing. And the outdoor advertising is highly visible, continuously on, and reaches a large unrestricted audience, including children. And that children's food brand recognition predicts health-related outcomes, such as a preference for obesogenic foods and increased risk of overweight. In a Harvard study, they found that there were more fast food restaurants clustering near schools than would be predicted by, or expected by chance. And the studies by Gina Trapp and her team at the Telethon Kids Institute are showing a similar trend. And she concluded in a recent article that children living in Perth, WA experience a high level of exposure to unhealthy outdoor food advertisements during their school commute. So in the last meeting, the landowner stated that the tenants of these businesses approached them and insisted on placing their franchises on this particular lot, even though there is already a development in Hammond Park which has approval for fast food restaurants. Each year, these students, if the proposed development goes ahead, will have close to 2,000 hours of brand exposure to these brands. And that is likely to shape their habits going into the future. So I would like the, in support of the, I would like to say that just because this has been approved to happen at other places, it doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean that it should continue to happen at schools like at Hammond Park Primary. So I would like you to consider that maybe this isn't the right thing for this school. And that leads me to my last point, which is around the excessive pylon heights that are proposed. The location is in a valley type location, and it is clearly visible from oncoming traffic coming in both directions. At the nearby Hammond Park Centre, neighbourhood centre, that has been approved for development of the Woolworths. They've slashed the pylon heights there to 6 metres and 4 metres. And just to conclude, I'd like to say that, like Mark mentioned, we are not opposed to development and progress in our suburb, but we would like to see the benefits for our community rather than the risk of harm for our children. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Damien.
Thank you.
Oh, you're online, Damien. Apologies.
Yes, not a problem.
Please go ahead.
Wonderful. Look, thank you so much for the opportunity to share today. Look, the recommendation put forward by the city states 12 different concerns related to the incompatibility of this proposed development with the overarching strategic planning framework. There were then another 12 plus concerns that were shared in the initial recommendation, ranging from traffic, environmental, risk to human health and safety, many of which remain significant, inadequately addressed and unresolved today. I think that the sheer number and the diversity of these concerns, when you look at it in combination, but also in isolation, it just demonstrates how incompatible this proposed development is with the subject site, given its close proximity to the Hammond Park Primary School. These concerns are shared by over 60% of the community. And the city has reached out and gained advice from many credible agencies, which all share similar uniform concerns that these have not been adequately addressed. In moving into the final slide, what I would like to sort of focus on is our primary concern. This development should be refused because of the following legitimate planning considerations. The land was zoned for residential and not intended for this type of use. The proposed uses of a fast food outlet and a service station are X-class and should not be permitted for approval. The proximity of the service station to the Hammond Park Primary School is approximately 30 metres boundary to boundary and far below the recommended 200 metres, which increases the risk to human health and safety. The buffer zone to the conservation category wetland is insufficient and remains unresolved. Given the types of contaminants that it will be exposed to, being litter, hydrocarbons, detergents, and different cleaning products, the current proposed buffer is really actually irresponsible. It also possesses or poses an unacceptable risk to the health and safety of child pedestrians. There were examples given by the applicant regarding similar approved developments in close proximity to sensitive land uses, such as service stations next to childcare centres and primary schools. And what I would like to sort of do is just sort of reiterate Joe's point, is that in making the decision today, we just ask that you please consider that two wrongs don't make a right. Historical approved developments in inappropriate locations does not mean that this proposed development is appropriate, responsible, nor safe.
So you're time, Damien, so if you'd like to draw to a close.
Wrap up? Absolutely. This proposed development will bring significant risk which disproportionately outweighs any benefit. It will change the community setting and not in a positive way. It goes against proper and orderly planning. It goes against the majority of the community expectation. It conflicts with what the city is trying to achieve in regards to healthy living, and it places the health and safety of our children at risk. What I would like to ask the panel in closing is that we ask you today to take the opportunity to be brave, and it will actually take bravery to overturn the initial decision. We ask today that you make a responsible decision, support the city's recommendation, and refuse the development application to ensure the safety of our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Panel members, are there any questions of any of those three presenters? Councillor Dewan, did you have any questions for the presenters?
Just a small comment. The speaker obviously supporting the city's recommendation, because in one of the statements he did mention that we should refuse the application or something. So just to clarify, he meant obviously that we should support the officer's recommendation.
Support the recommendation and refuse the development application, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. All right, there being no further questions, thank those presenters. And we move now to Mr. Neil Teo and Mr. John Del Dosso, who are presenting against the primary RAR recommendation. I've allowed you a combination of 6 minutes for your presentation, 3 minutes each. I'll let you know when you're close to.
Good morning, and thank you, panel members. Thanks for the deputation, and thanks to those online as well. I'm Neil Tier from Dynamic Planning. Look, this is going to be very short from my end. The reason for our deputation today is really just to make it clear to the DAP that when it was approved in May of the DAP, we had little time prior to review the conditions of approval. Before the DAP on the day as an alternate recommendation, which were approved in the end. So post receiving the approval, there was a need to refine and clarify some of the conditions. So that's the reason why the matter went to review through the SAT. We're not here to discuss land use conflicts and technical matters, because we spent a lot of time in the May DAP meeting dealing with those issues. So that was undertaken quite thoroughly at that forum. Really, the The alternative recommendation that's there in the agenda reflects the liaisons we've been having with the city, and we hold no objection to the alternative recommendation, all those conditions, because they reflect consistency with discussions we've had with the city today. So that's really the main point. I would say that the way they've written the agenda, they have every right to write the way they have, has presented a bit of confusion, just in the sense that we are dealing with a review on conditions only. And we have gone through the planning process previously to deal with things such as amenity, land use, technical considerations. John, did you want to add anything?
I think the only thing I'd like to add is that during this process, we worked well with the city and its planners and various advisors to review and bring clarity to the conditions which were put together hurriedly prior to the last meeting. The process was amicable, and we worked together well, resolving every issue to the extent that we've improved our landscaping plan. We now have more trees being replanted than are being removed. Moreover, many of those trees are in the verge, and those trees on maturity have been demonstrated that they will screen the majority of the development pylons and actually provide a very aesthetic and appealing presentation of the premises. The environmental reports have thoroughly dealt with all the environmental issues. There's been no other expert evidence provided to convey a decision in any other direction. And we've actually improved the safety and well-being of the wetland through additional fencing above and beyond the standard recommended by the city. So we've gone to great lengths to appease all the issues that the city presented to us, and I think we've successfully done that.
All right, thank you. I'm just wondering, before questions, would it be useful to hear from Ms. Morich as well? And then we've got all the presenters for the applicants, and then we can filter through questions. So you're welcome to stay there. There are sufficient chairs, I think. I've allowed you 3 minutes.
Thank you, presiding member and members of the panel. You've received a copy of my written dissertation, and I don't intend reading that verbatim. What I would like to say is I think that it's slightly unfortunate that the city's RAR makes the recommendation that it does, because in doing so it has very much confused, I think, the submitters as to the role of the DAP this morning, and has had the perception of re-enlivening things which are not open for the DAP to do. This application for review was a review of conditions only, not of the approval itself. The statute is quite clear on the scope of the decision maker in terms of dealing with appeals of that nature. The only circumstance where a decision for approval could be turned into a refusal at this stage is in circumstances where one of the conditions was so substantive to the approval being acceptable that if it can't be complied with, then the whole of the approval should fall over. And certainly none of the conditions that were under review in this circumstance go anywhere near that level of gravity in terms of its impact on the approval proper. Most of the conditions, as you would have seen from the application for review, was a requirement for further clarification. One of the benefits of having gone through that mediation process is that a number of the conditions were able to be removed and actually put onto the plans, so that there's complete certainty and transparency about what the development will look like. I note the reason for approval last time that was given by the DAP in May when the approval was granted included that the development is sufficiently separated from nearby residential, education and other commercial and retail development to not cause undue impacts. The traffic analysis has been supported by the city and appropriate conditions were provided for satisfactory management of access, egress and traffic management for the development. Now, none of that has changed. If anything, there is now further particularity, particularly around traffic in terms of the preparation of additional information that had been requested through the conditions by the city. And for that reason, our submission to the DAP is that your remit today is to reconsider the application based upon the amended plans and conditions, but it is not within the scope of your remit to now refuse an application in accordance with the preferred RAR recommendation. Our request, respectfully, is that the approval is granted in accordance with the alternative recommendation in your RAR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll ask panel members for questions now. For ease, I might refer to Councillor Dewan. Yes, you have your hand up, panel member. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to draw my attention to the last speaker, Ms. Morich, in regards to what she said that the JDAP doesn't have the statute and the powers to refuse this application. I would like to draw the attention of the panel members on the RAR page number 4, please. At the bottom of the page, number 4 of the RAR states, I'll just quote that as it is. Recent legal advice suggests the draft local structure plan should be considered as a seriously entertained planning proposal. As demonstrated by case law Nichols versus WAPC, a seriously entertained planning proposal is a relevant matter for consideration during a planning assessment for which the decision maker should give regard. So it's very clear that for the people of Hammond Park and for this panel, it is utmost important that we revisit that decision which was taken.
Councillor Dewan, did you have a question for Ms. Morich around this, please?
Yes, I would like to hear Ms. Morich's response to the comment made by the officers of the city on page number 4. Thank you.
I must say, Councillor, I'm struggling to find the reference to the decision of Nichols on page 4 of the RAR.
Are we looking at a different page number, Councillor Dewan, perhaps, or are you referring to the original responsible authority report?
Well, it is on. It is the responsible authority report, Form 1. Which is,
so that would be the original responsible authority report, I believe, going back to May. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
I see. Okay.
I mean, I can speak to the decision in Nichols, which is a decision which requires policy to be adhered to in circumstances unless there are extenuating circumstances for the policy not to be applied in that particular circumstance. How that relates to a draft structure plan, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. That's certainly not the basis upon which Nichols is usually cited as a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any other questions?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
I'll refer to the panel members in the room. Any questions of the presenters?
Yes,
thank you, Councillor.
You were mentioning the widening of Hammond Road. Were you aware that that was on the city's forward works plan for 2 or 3 years out? Russell Road to Gabler Road?
One of the requirements of the original set of conditions, which has now been complied with by actually providing the information to the city, and I must say the city is now comfortable with, was plans which identified the crossovers to this development in respect of Hammond Road as it currently stands, and also a traffic impact statement and additional plans to show the ultimate redevelopment of Hammond Road and widening of Hammond Road. So both of those scenarios have been contemplated and have been assessed as being appropriate by your officers. So
Can I also respond to that question, if I may?
Yes, please, if it adds to it.
The city for over a decade, maybe even 15 years, has historically published annual infrastructure reports setting out their road hierarchy and their plans to construct roads throughout the region. And I've got the history of those plans. At one point, the plan to deliver Hammond Road was as early as 2022. And for reasons unknown to me, the city has, since that period, kept pushing it out. All right, so I don't know why they've done that, but I can actually demonstrate the history of those plans where this road, in theory, should already be built.
Okay, thank
I
you.
will say that as soon as something goes from being on the other side of 4 years, where it's in the long-term planning, as soon as it becomes closer than 4 years, it's actually a reality. So,
Thank you. Yeah, other questions?
why did you choose the particular location of the petrol station being in the northwest corner of the redevelopment? To me, it might have made more sense being at the southern end where the KFC was further away. Was that due to like bushfire attack levels, or?
Let me respond to that. The combination of two factors. The primary factor was circulation of tankers, getting them in and out of the site safely. And the second one was to create as much distance as possible from the wetland, get that as far away as possible from the wetland. But notwithstanding, taking that into account, our hydrologists informs us that the underwater ground flows are actually from northeast to northwest, which take the water away from the wetland, and putting the service station in that location was the safest place to do for the hydrology in the wetland.
Any other questions? All good with that? Other panel members, questions of the presenters?
We've just got one online from Councillor Dewan.
Councillor Dewan, you have another question?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. This is actually addressed to the City of Cockburn, please.
Sorry, Councillor, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to make sure that the panel members don't have any further questions of the presenters.
All right.
And then I'll come to you next for the officers. Thank you. Did you have any questions of the presenters? No. I have, thank you. It's probably to Mr. Teo. You were quite comfortable with the proposed conditions and those that have come through the process that you've been through in the alternate. I'd just like to draw your attention to condition 6C, which refers to appropriate footpaths. And there is an advice note which gives us a degree of clarity around, I think it's advice note C, which gives us a degree of clarity around what the intention of that condition is. Without prejudicing anything further in this meeting, but should it come to us considering that alternate, would you, your client, have any objection to the wording of that advice note C actually being contained within condition 6C to provide a degree of clarity and certainty?
Thank you for the question. We hold no objection.
Thank you, because I know this goes back through SAT, and SAT sometimes do or don't take account of those advice notes. Thank you. Just one other question for you. We heard from one of the presenters there, concern, I guess, around the petrol filling station and V2 technology and ongoing maintenance. And I note as well that in the alternate that the city has provided us, condition 19 does actually require that VR2 is installed and maintained to the satisfaction of the city. You clear that that means for the duration of the development and you know the onus upon the operator and the development to uphold that?
Yes, we are, and that was always the intention and the expectation.
Right. Okay.
No objection to.
All right. Thank you very much. I've got no further questions. Just checking again. No other questions. We're good. We'll let you go. Thank you. So we will now refer to local government. We have Chantella Hill.
Actually, sorry.
So, oh,
I may just have one question, maybe to one of you two. You have in condition 21 some expectation that landscaping will be in stages.
The condition 21 regarding
Second, you've got in there landscaping will be in stages. That's fine. Is there any reason why all of the verge treatments can't be in stage 1?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Dewan, you have questions of the officers. We have Chantella Hill, Lucia Dunstan and Riley Brown available for questions. Would you like to put your question, please?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to understand about the brief history of this decision, which was made on the local structure plan way back in 2017, actually. In December 2017, the Western Australian Planning Commission requested the applicant or the city to modify the draft local structure plan. The modifications have yet to be formally submitted to the WAPC, and as a result, the local structure plan remains in draft form. I want to understand from the City of Cockburn as to why there has been such an enormous delay in finalizing the draft local structure plan.
Thank you. Over to the city officers.
Thank you, Councillor Dewan. So briefly, I think the responsibility for modifying a structure plan in accordance with the recommendation of the WAPC generally falls upon the applicant. I do note that there is an opportunity for the city to undertake those modifications. Sometimes it is problematic though, because we want to see the applicant sort of embrace those modifications as their own and basically update their structure plan in accordance with those mods. So we try to encourage those modifications to be updated in light of that. But there is, you are correct, the opportunity for the city to undertake those mods if we wanted to and felt compelled to do so.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dewan, did you have any other questions of the city officers?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. To the panel members in the room, did you have any questions of the city officers? Councillor Siparovich, did you have any?
Yes. With the approved uses for this site, I did notice that fast food was an ex-use, but we've obviously got that approved. I'm just wondering, with the actual site location where it is very disconnected from the rest of the residential areas that are in Hammond Park. You know, the wetland is almost a buffer zone between the residential and this development. The school occupies the northern half, and there's no development whatsoever on the western end. Is it really that inconsistent with the town planning scheme if this site is like almost an appendix that's sitting off on the rest of Hammond Park? Like, it's not really connected to the rest of it. So is it is it inconsistent with the rest of the suburb if it's not really connected to it?
Okay, there was a question from Councillor Siparovich there, and it might need some explanation as well about the ex-uses in the draft structure plan as well, I think.
Well, I understand the excuses. I just don't understand why it was specifically designated as residential in the first place.
I see. Okay. Thank you. That there's some clarity around the question. Thank you to the city officers now. You're on mute. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, the district structure plan did, I suppose, on the whole, indicate that entire area to be envisaged for residential. So that's at the district scale. And then diving further into that, the draft local structure plan indicated that residential as well. Yeah, so that's kind of essentially where that overarching strategic framework is coming from, that the overall intention was always for residential in that location. It probably also speaks to the fact that there's the wetland in proximity and the idea that commercial uses might somehow impact the wetland negatively from an environmental perspective. So I think the broader arching district structure plan recognised that.
Right, thank you. Other panel member questions of the city? John, no? Okay. I do have a question for the city. They're of a more administrative nature, I guess. You've referred to footnotes rather than advice notes. Just wondering if you could clarify why that is the case.
No, there's no specific reason for that. That's just essentially how we generally note that in our planning approvals, and that's just
it's a work of the Cockburn system to call them footnotes. But
yeah, no,
yeah,
essentially the same
advice. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And the other one is literally purely administrative, and in the advice notes, I think there's a letter that's been introduced, letter I, after H, that shouldn't be there. So I think then the lettering is somewhat out of sync, and probably it's just an administrative matter to note should we get to that point of the report. But could you just clarify I'm not reading it incorrectly? It goes H with regard to condition 12, and then there's a letter I before we get to the A, B, C, D, E bits, which I don't think should be there.
Sorry, I can't see that actually in there, unless that's from the version that I'm reading. I can just see H with regard to condition 12, and then there's the sub point underneath, point A, assessment of noise emissions.
Yeah, because
okay, well, in the copy that I've got an I in the margin.
Apologies.
That's all right.
See where that is on my end. I'm not sure. It would probably just be a typo, I would say.
Yeah, it is just, I think, just an administrative thing to note. That's all right. Oh, and just finally, I did put the question to the applicant around clarity on this condition 6C, where it just says appropriate footpaths, but the advice note is quite clear what's expected. So would you have any objection to the wording from advice note C going into condition 6C?
No, definitely not. No objection.
All right, lovely, thank you. No further questions from me. Just last time of asking, any further questions of the officers before we move ahead? We're all good? All right, thank you for that to the city officers. We'll move ahead then to the agenda, and we'll take the motions in the order that the responsible authority report has put them to us in the first instance, and the RAR recommends that we reconsider our decision of May and refuse the application for 12 reasons. So is there a mover for that, please, as the primary motion?
Councillor Dewan, I'll move the motion.
Councillor Dewan, thank you. Is there a seconder for that, please? There is not, Councillor Dewan, so that motion lapses for want of a seconder. Thank you. I'd now seek from the panel members an alternate as the motion, please. Do I have a mover for an alternate motion?
Move it.
Thank you, Ms O'Donoghue. And is there a seconder, please, for the alternate? Oh, thank you, councillor Saparovich. Thank you very much. Ms O'Donoghue, would you like to speak to the alternate as the mover?
Yes, just, look, it is unfortunate that the RAR was put together in such a manner that I think there was a bit of confusion about what this panel is actually able to do. And I think as a panel member, I'm very clear that this is reconsideration of a number of conditions and that we cannot revisit even if there was a willingness to do so, previous decision. It seems to me that the consideration of a number of conditions having gone to SET and gone through the mediation process would appear to have been satisfactorily resolved between the applicant and city officers, and I'm comfortable with the alternate recommendation for those reasons.
Thank you very much, Ms O'Donoghue. Councillor Saparovich, would you like to speak to the motion as seconder?
This is new to me. Usually at council meetings, I second it. No, the all the changes to the reasons, so the conditions on here all seem very common sense. Like it just seems to be clarifying what is actually allowed to be a condition. So I had no objection to any of them. So, yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Syme.
Yes, briefly. Yes, I agree. Unfortunately for some of the submitters, really the DAP in this instance really is I agree with Ms Morrich's submission. We are really restricted to looking at those conditions. The issues of land use, issues of environmental impact and traffic and so on in general terms, they've already been debated at extreme length, I must say, and decided some time ago, and we're not re-debating those issues. We're looking at conditions only, and for those reasons, Councillor Saparovich says everything looks to be sense and reasonable, and they've been worked out with the city. If I may propose an amend a condition to condition 21.
Yes.
Concerning landscaping, and that would read all landscaping treatments and plantings to the verge should be included as part of the stage 1 works.
So all landscaping treatments and planting to the verge should be included as stage 1 works. Have I got that wording right? Thank you. I'm happy to second that amending motion. Mr. Syme, did you wish to speak to the amending motion?
Oh, look, only briefly. I think it's important that those trees in particular go in early and as soon as they possibly can. We're losing a couple of jarrah trees. I think if it's been replaced by some more, then they need to be planted straight away as part of stage 1 works, and I think that's reasonable. It includes it gets in place the general environment of the area, so the other stuff can go in as it goes.
Thank you. Yes, I support what you just said. I think as well, supportive of the use of native species, but they can be quite slow growing to get established and so forth. And I think given that we now understand this might be a stage development, I think that early verge treatment is very important to provide the amenity and the streetscape improvements that have been promised. So I'm happy with that. Did anybody else wish to speak to the amending motion only? Makes sense. All good. John, did you wish anything more? No. Let's just vote on amending motion 1 therefore. Those in favour? That's 4. And against, Councillor Dewan? You're against. Okay, the motion is carried 4-1 with Councillor Dewan against. Thank you. John?
Nothing more to say, I don't think. No.
Okay, thank you. I will speak to the motion on the table. I support this alternative to approve, subject to those revised conditions. I do concur with the other speakers that our remit at this point is narrowed to considering those matters which have come back to us for reconsideration from SAT, not the entire decision of May, but those reviewable conditions. And there is no change to the planning framework since the last decision. the changes that have occurred within the development proposal before us are associated basically with the design development process. And I can see that from a landscape and a reduction in signage point of view and an improvement in landscape, there are some positive elements to that. I'm satisfied that condition 19, which includes the requirement for V2 technology and ongoing management and maintenance of that technology, adequately provides for the fuel station facility. I would like to note, though, an amending motion to condition 6C, which I would like to incorporate the wordings of the footnote advice note C. So I think the wording would be footpath, appropriate footpath shall run along and continue with the rest of condition C. So it would be appropriate footpath shall run along the Hammond and Gabler Road frontages with a single point of crossing, pram ramp, brackets, the north side of Gabler Road in front of the medical centre. The crossing point should be designed to comply with sightline requirements of the Oz Road guidelines on both sides of the road. That's my amending motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Syme. Very briefly, I just think that that provides clarity. I was a little unsure of what appropriate footpath full stop meant. And I can see that condition 6 provides us with that. I think the plans themselves include other footpaths already and circulation. So I think that that will provide improvements to the safety for visitors, residents and children crossing the road, and adequate separation from traffic. Did you wish to speak?
No,
all right. Did anybody else wish to speak to that amending motion? All right, on that amending motion, let us put the vote. Those in favour, that's 4-4. Against, Councillor Dewan is against. The motion is carried 4-1, just to amend that. There's nothing further that I wanted to say. I think we've got the business of the administrator tucked away there. So I'll go back to the mover to close.
No further comment.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I would like to speak against the motion first.
You'd like to speak? Okay. Yes, I beg your pardon, Councillor Dewan. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, the development application sought approval for a service station and other allied amenities. And I speak to this motion to refuse this motion altogether. Reason being, the City of Cockburn has recommended refusing the proposal for a service station, fast food outlets, car wash, and a medical center on Gabler Road for the following reasons. Number one, the land is zoned for housing, not commercial activities. I have been staying in that area for 21 years and I have seen near misses and accidents on Gabler Road. It is primarily surrounded by dwellings and not commercial establishments. Of course, there are environmental risks. The nearby protected wetland isn't being properly safeguarded as of now. And the poor children of Hammond Park Primary School, which constitute a big number, almost 900 of them plus and growing, they don't have a voice. And today on this meeting in JDAP, I want to voice their concerns. I will give you some examples which the panel must record and understand that we are setting up a very wrong precedent by allowing this commercial establishment to come to Hammond Park suburb. Recent studies have highlighted the negative impacts of fast food consumption on children's health, particularly concerning obesity and related health issues. Some of the key findings I will share with the panel. Regular consumption of fast food is linked to higher calorie intake, poor diet quality, and increased risk of obesity among children. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that children who frequently consume fast food have diets higher in total fat, carbohydrates, and added sugars, contributing to weight gain and obesity. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition states the availability of fast food restaurants near school, correlates with higher obesity rates among students. Research indicates that students with fast food outlets within a half mile of their schools are more likely to be overweight and consume unhealthy foods. And I don't want the next generation of Australians to be obese and inefficient. They are the future leaders of our country. Wikipedia states, please listen, impact of fast food marketing. Exposure to fast food marketing significantly influences children's food preference and consumption patterns, leading to increased intake of unhealthy foods. BMC Public Health states, implementing planning policies to restrict the number of new fast food outlets has been associated with reductions in childhood overweight and obesity rates. But here we are doing the opposite. For instance, one of the research found that such policies led to fewer overweight and obese children in the affected areas. So this is about the students. Now let's talk about the land use conflicts. The City of Cockburn Town Planning Scheme number 3 clearly designates the site for residential use, where a service station and fast food outlets are not permitted. And as the officers of the Cockburn just answered one of my fellow councillors, the Southern Suburb District Structure Plan and the Draft Local Structure Plan 2017 confirm the residential intent for this area. And number 2, let's talk about the environment. The proposal completely fails to meet requirement of protecting the nearby conservation category wetland. The risks exist for chemical contamination, stormwater runoff, and wastewater from the service station and motor vehicle wash. I hope the panel could have considered that, but that's all right. Moving further, this planning, lack of orderly planning and proper planning contradicts the good principles and strategic framework which aim to preserve residential amenities and environmental assets. The City of Cockburn has got one of the finest brains in planning, and they have gone through each details and given this proposal a no. However, here we are, going ahead with 4-1 democratic decision. Did you know that during the community consultation, there were 447 objections raised by the people of Hammond Park, which constitutes almost about 60% of the total population. And if you understand the demographics of Hammond Park, most of the parents are young. They are in the mid-30s with little kids and children for whom they move to Hammond Park to give them a bright future, and not that there should be a service station bang opposite the primary school. And in lieu of the landscaping and visual impact, there have been so many objections raised by the City of Cockburn, and I totally endorse them, that the length of the advertising material has been totally contradicted. It is detriment, it is completely detriment for the visibility of those advertising logos to thousands of children who will go to the school, and also to the visitors who would be visiting Hammond Park off and on. The last but not the least, a commercial activity center in the middle of a residential accommodation or dwellings will invite antisocial elements, will invite issues for the safety of my residents, which is again detrimental. For the benefit of the JDAP and others, there is IGA, a very close IGA, which is open from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every day. And it is all the grocery needs of that community are being met by that community, by that business. And there is a huge area still available adjacent to the IGA, which remains unoccupied, untenanted, unrented for the last almost, I would say, 8 to 10 months. So I wonder why we are focusing on commercial activity when there is a housing shortage in the state. We should be building more residential apartments rather than encouraging commercial activity centers through this decision-making body. And I'm not finished. Let me look at my notes further. Yes, last point, I'll then conclude. In Cockburn, the city of Cockburn has got 24 suburbs, right? Every suburb, almost every suburb today is facing two very difficult situations. Number one, there is lack of parking spaces around the schools. When the parents come and drop their kids in the morning and take them in the afternoon, it is a chaos. It is a prone to incidents and accidents. Where will all the traffic go once this development comes up? I want to ask the panel, where will it go? There will be thousands of more cars, trucks, which is not only a safety hazard, but it is also an issue for proper parking. And this is what we are seeing for the last so many years in Cockburn. We live here, we know. And even my fellow councillor will also ratify that parking is a huge issue. And increase of traffic will cause havoc in this with this development. So I conclude by saying that it's unfortunate that I have to speak against this motion, and I don't have a support. But hopefully one day, hopefully people will understand that why this is important to listen to the kids, listen to the traffic incident options, listen to the people of the community who voted 60% in rejecting this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joan. And again, my apologies for not coming to you sooner on that one. Donahue, as the mover, would you like to close?
No further comment. Close the debate.
All right, thank you very much. Let's vote on the alternate motion with those amendments that we previously voted on. Those in favour? That's Councillor Saparovich, Mr. Syme, Mr. Donahue and Ms. Hyde. Those against?
Councillor Dewan against.
Councillor Dewan is against. That motion is carried 4-1. Thank you. That brings that item to a close. Just very quickly, I refer back to the agenda, part C. Just matters for noting at SAT. The only one for Cockburn is the matter before us today. Meeting closure, I will call the meeting to a close at 10:36 and thank everybody for their attendance, presentations, etc. today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.